Here we go.
Start webinar. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Art Escape. This will be the first one in our series, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we'll be talking with Dr. Jay Shu, the Barbara Bass Baker Director and CEO of the Asian Art Museum. And we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. I see a lot of us are still filing into the room. And so before we get started, I'm just going to go over a couple of things first. First is the schedule. What does today's program look like? So today, we're going to spend about 5 minutes just going through greetings and introduction while everybody files in and gets comfortable. After that, we are going to show about a 20-minute video on today's subject, Bronze, China's Power Medal. After that, we will do a question and answer session with Dr. Jay Shu. He is online right now. He is just not on the screen. And so if you have any preliminary questions, you are welcome to drop them into the Q&A. However, we are going to be taking questions throughout the program, so don't feel rushed at all. There are a couple of different features that you should be familiar with for this event. There is the chat and the Q&A. Now, while the icons do look very, very similar, there are a couple of differences. The chat can be seen by everybody. And so if you drop it in, all participants, all speakers, everybody can see that. So that's how you can really engage with each other. However, there's also the Q&A. The Q&A is only seen by us panelists. And so if you have a question that is for the director, please drop it into the Q&A. It'll be much, much easier for us to stay organized and get everything set up. So I definitely recommend putting it in the Q&A if you have a question directly for us. But if you want to broadcast something to everybody, feel free to put it into the chat. And so let's play with the chat right now. Let's get a little familiar with it. I want everybody to drop into the chat. What city are you logging on at? Where are you from? I am currently inside of the Asian Art Museum. So I'm in San Francisco, but I would love to see where everybody else is logging on from. So just drop into the chat, what city, what state, where are you? I see a lot of answers popping up already. That's so awesome. We have San Diego, Emeryville, Boston, Oakland, Vegas. Wow, Minneapolis. We have a very wide audience tonight. That's exciting. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And then before we do get started, I wanted to do a land acknowledgement. Here at the Asian Art Museum, we do try and have the land acknowledgement at the beginning of all of our virtual programs to acknowledge that we are on Ohlone land. So we would like to acknowledge that the land that which we are gathered on is ancestral home to the Ohlone people who stewarded this land for generations. We pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, traditions, and culture of their people across the nation. We extend our respect to the Ohlone Rabaytush, coastal Miwok, as well as other indigenous people who are present. And so you may be wondering, what's new at the Asian Art Museum? We've been closed for a while. Unfortunately, we've been closed for about 11 months now, minus a couple of months when we were open in the fall. So we've had a lot of really fun, exciting things that are new at the Asian Art Museum. On the upper left side, you can see one of our newest exhibitions, Chanel Miller's I Was, I Am, I Will Be. Right next to that, you can see Joss Chiranjeeva's You're Not the Boss of Me. Bottom left, Jennifer K. Wofford's Pattern Recognition. And the bottom right, Sang Chong Bin's I Look for the Sky. Now, the first three, even though the museum is closed, you can actually see from outside the museum. They're based around our new expansion, our new pavilion, our new art terrace, and the Chanel Miller's piece, that is the first exhibition in our new Wilbur Gallery, and you can view that from Hyde Street. Right below that, just like in this slide, is Pattern Recognition. So you can view both of those at the same time. And then if you just go around the corner a little bit and look up, that is where You're Not the Boss of Me is located, overlooking everybody on Hyde Street and McAllister Street. And while the museum is closed right now, there's a lot of ways that you can engage. We have a bunch of virtual programs on our lineup. We have an At the Table event next month for Persian New Year, We also have a meditation session. If you've been to our meditation sessions before, you will probably remember they happen once a month. It's generally like the second Saturday of every month. We actually had one this morning. And so you just missed that one, but don't worry, we have one coming up on March 13th. So be sure to sign up for that. We also have a bunch of virtual tours that are going on. We have Takeout Tuesdays, and every Tuesday at 12 o'clock during your lunch break, just turn off all of your like work emails, everything like that. Sit down with one of our docents and learn about new art all around the museum. And each week has a different theme. So every single week you'll learn new things. And then another virtual tour that is brand new is this series, Art Escapes, Virtual Tours Through Asia. In 2 weeks from today, not about 2 weeks, in 2 weeks from today, we're gonna have our next one hosted by Forrest McGill. And you may be wondering, wow, that is all so cool. How do I join all of those? And how do I learn about new programs that are always coming up? You can always become a member. The members have tons of benefits at the museum, whether we're open or when we're closed. When we're open, you will receive free admission to our galleries, whether that's a collections gallery, special exhibition gallery, always free admission to those. You also receive invitations to member-only previews and events. When we open a new special exhibition, a lot of the time the day before, it will be a members-only day. So you get to see that exhibition before anybody else would get to. We also have something called the Virtual Member Lounge. And so even though I did talk about a couple of different programs earlier that will be happening for just the general public, our membership team actually has members-only events that happen throughout the month. They have different lectures, different ways to engage. And then you get a discount at the Museum Boutique, 10% off or $50 off of any orders, or free shipping with any orders over $50. And then you also get added to our member newsletter and our weekly e-news. And you may be wondering, who are you? Who are you that's talking to us? So my name is Nicole. I am the manager of guest experience and group sales at the Asian Art Museum. I've been here for about 2 years, and the term guest experience is very broad reaching. What we do in my department is we are the ticket sellers. When you come into the museum and you scan your barcode, or you buy a ticket, or you buy a membership on site, that's my team. We also oversee the information desk and the concierge station, also known as Coat Check. And we organize private tours, group visits, and we oversee a lot of the accessibility resources like our wheelchairs or our take a seat stools, the mobile guides. So we're kind of all over the place. And then for tonight's program, you will be hearing from Dr. Jay Shu. So Dr. Shu has been the director and CEO of the Asian Art Museum since 2008. And he is the first Asian American director of a major American art museum. He's a specialist in early Chinese art and came to the museum from the Art Institute of Chicago. And he is a member of the advisory boards at Princeton, Harvard, UC Berkeley, and the Shanghai Museum. And he's on the Terra Foundation for American Art Governing Board. So welcome, Jay. How are you?
Very well, Nicole, and good afternoon or good evening or even good morning, depends on where you are. I think the virtual world has this ability to eradicate the physical distance, where all this in the equal distance, the place where are to where the screen is. So today actually is the second day of the Lunar New Year. And so let me first wish everyone a very happy Lunar New Year. And Gong Hei Fa Chai, that's in Cantonese, but my Cantonese is shaky. Xing Yan Kuai Le, that's the Mandarin Chinese. But my Mandarin also carries the accent. So Daga Xing Yi Kuai Le, Wezi Lui. Now that's authentic because that's my hometown Shanghai's term. So I'm a Shanghainese, being in America for 30 years. So once again, wish everyone a very happy Lunar New Year. And this year actually we call Year of the Ox. But the ox, these 12 zodiac symbols also combined with 5 elements that are regulating the Chinese understanding of cosmology. And this is in the category of metal. So people will say this is a year for very rare, a year of the golden ox. But technically speaking, the word for golden in this case is Jing. Jing is in ancient Chinese a very broad term referring to metal. So a direct translation would be year of the metal ox. But of course, golden sounds much more interesting and auspicious. So let's stick to the year of the golden ox. And this is also very interestingly related to today's topic. You know, my staff has a wonderful topic. They developed a topic rather than me called the bronze. China's a power metal. See, metal is right there, Jing. And so why the bronze was so important as a medium? Because it is precious, and also because it could use to make weapons, and also make very important vessels. In the traditional Chinese understanding, there are 2 most important undertakings by the states when you sacrifice. There are rituals that one conducts to sacrifice to the deceased ancestors and other spirits for their blessing. And also the other one is warfare. So the metal, in this case, bronze, serves the primary purpose as a medium for both making vessels for sacrificial purposes, as well as for making weapons. But of course, in addition to that, the sacrificial implements also include the music instruments, and other metal objects will include the personal ornaments, such as belt hooks, then later mirrors, and so on and so forth. So it's a very wide range. That is why in the early part of China history, called the Bronze Age of China, our museum's collection is quite extraordinary. It's one of the most comprehensive, also largest among the collections outside China. And it covers the range about the entire Bronze Age, from the early time, about the middle of the 1st millennium BCE, to the unification of China by the first emperor of Qing, so towards the beginning of the Common Era. So altogether, almost about 1,500 years. Then our collection also covers a lot of varieties. And vessels, for example, are made in whole very rich array of shapes. And our museum has classical examples of most of those vessel types. And as I say, also in addition, weapons and other ornaments and the music instruments as well. And besides the typical vessel types, our museum often the case contains something very rare, so for one of a kind or rare specimens of a certain types. So this is also helps distinguish the quality and the caliber of the Asian Art Museum's collection of ancient Chinese bronzes. Altogether, we have about 700 specimens, out of which about 300 are vessels. So that can tell you the range. And today, in the pre-recorded tour that I did to showcase to you all, about 20 minutes long, we'll focus on 4 vessel types. And these are very interesting vessel types, 2 of which are the typical kinds, and 2 of which are for extraordinary kinds. And we shall see and we can discuss later. And also they showcase a range of stylistic evolution and varieties. And time-wise, those 4 pieces more focus on the earlier part of the Bronze Age, which we call early Bronze Age, roughly speaking from about 14th centuries BCE to about 10th centuries BCE. So about a span of 400 years, the early part, and during which some of the most wonderful pieces were made. And I'm looking forward to future opportunity to introduce extraordinary examples of later parts of our collection as well. And besides the vessel types, their functions, and also their surface decorations or their shapes, there's those vessels, and the 3 of the 4 carry inscriptions. One carry an inscription identify the clan from which the person who commissioned the piece belonged. And the other two are very lengthy and tells very important historical events and the circumstances under which the person who commissioned the making of the piece. So not only they're wonderful artistic objects illustrating the artistic ingenuity of the time, but also they convey important information about history. So in doing so, we also get to appreciate the calligraphy, the writing, the content, the style of writing during China's early Bronze Age. So without further ado, let me stop here and ask Nicole to start the video, and please enjoy. And I'd love to have as many as questions that I'll be able to answer. If for any questions I won't be able to answer on the spot, we'll make notes of them, and then I'll contact you with the answers later. Okay? Thanks. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Shu. I'm the Barbara Bass Baker Director of the Asian Art Museum. Welcome to join me exploring some of the wonderful pieces in our collection of ancient Chinese bronzes. Our museum houses one of the most important and the largest collections of ancient Chinese bronzes outside China. It boasts very broad in time, dating from about 1500 BCE to about the beginning of the Common Era, and also very broad in variety, various kinds of vessel types, music instruments, garment hooks, mirrors, weapons. In this gallery, we highlight some of the most important pieces, and I like to select 4 to go into some depth to explore them along with you. And of course, the 4 pieces will not do the justice to our magnificent collection. But my point will be, hopefully, you'll be interested in this journey, interested in learning about those 4 pieces, and then you can go on journey to explore on your own. I look forward to seeing all of you at the end of the tour. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, or we can explore possible answers together. I'd like to introduce you to this very elegant bronze vessel in our museum's collection. It is of the type called he. He meaning a particular type that's for wine container, for serving liquid in ancient times. And it dates from the 15th century BCE. In other words, it dates from the earliest period of China's Bronze Age. For our museum to have a specimen of such early bronzes, it is very rare. And this really attests the great significance of our museum's collection. Let's first look at the shape of the vessels. It has 3 legs, 3 pouched legs. And this not only makes the vessel very stable, but also make it very practical, because those fat pouches could contain the liquid, and before the liquid was served, it could be heated from underneath. So the pouches make the surface pretty broad in the heating surface, so it's very functional. And also to harken back to the original ceramic prototype, and which we have a similar example right next to it, also has a pouch at the surfaces used for liquid as well. As we know, of course, before bronzes was invented, there was always pottery. And when the bronzes were invented, pottery was continued to be made and used. Of course, bronzes were used in very, very special occasions, normally in sacrificial ceremony to ancestors or very high-ranking banquets. So that's why these kind of vessels, often the case, carry important surface decoration as well. And here, if you notice, there is a thin band of surface decoration in relief that carries so-called a animal-inspired zoomorphic design. Because the vessel was made rather early, so the design is delicate and subtle. You have to pay a great deal of attention in order to see it. But besides the narrow band of design on those legs, there's also another way of enjoying the shape and the decoration of this particular piece. That is a way to look from top down. If you look from top down, you will realize that actually the opening on the top is a person's mouth, because on top of it, above it, a pair of eyes. You know, we humans are always attracted to eyes. Once we see a pair of dots, we interpret this is eyes. Of course, in this particular case, not only you have a pair of eyes, you also have the open mouth, and you have the spout. And the spout also adds to the beauty of the vessel, makes it very upright. And the handle, on the other hand, not only is practical, but also, adding further to the interesting contour of this particular piece. So both from shape, from the decoration, as well as from its functionality, this is a very, very special piece. And we're so pleased to have it in our collections because ancient China, the bronzes is the embodiment of highest technology, in this case, casting technology, so that looking at this piece, we can approach it from multiple angles. Now I would like to introduce to you our museum's mascot, and also my favorite object in our museum's collection, an ancient Chinese bronze vessel in the shape of a rhinoceros. Yes, rhino in this particular case. Very interesting. The shape is very cute, don't you agree? And we notice this rhino has two horns, which indicates it's most likely a Sumatran rhino, which today is an endangered species, surviving only on small pockets on some islands in Indonesia. But in ancient China, like elephants, rhinos would be roaming freely in much of China's land. Then environmental change, climate change, rhino and the elephants all receded. And eventually, rhino became extinct in China, and the elephants only surviving a small area in the southwestern China, bordering Burma. In this particular case, the artist paid a great deal of attention to the naturalistic appearance of the rhino. Not only it has two horns, it has a pair of ears that are sticking out, indicating the rhino is on alert. The caster also paid attention to the number of toes, 3. Indeed, that is true. Rhino has 3 toes. And then it also do away with the surface decoration. So there's no surface pattern on this beast. Very, very naturalistic. This makes us very rare. Then, of course, the rhino has a very charming tubby tails in the back. One thing the caster did not indicate is the sex or the gender of the beast. So we don't know for sure. As we know, in ancient China, bronze vessels, mostly made in the shape of regular vessels, cups, beakers, so on and so forth. A small number were made in the shape of animals. But within that limited number of animal-shaped vessels, this is the only surviving one in the shape of a rhinoceros. So this is extremely rare. We're so proud to be the custodian of this rare treasure. What was it used for? It was used for containing wine. Once again, a very important liquid used in royal banquets or ceremonial sacrifices to one's ancestors. So would you imagine that this vessel would have a lid, which is now missing. But given the naturalistic appearance of the animal itself, one could imagine the lid is also of a shape, forming a natural contour with the rest of the body. This rhino also contains an inscription, which describes to us the person who commissioned this piece was awarded by the king of the dynasty for his participation in a military campaign. He must have done something extraordinary to deserve that award. And upon that occasion, he commissioned the piece to forever memorialize the deed. And because of the inscription, then we know that we can date it to about 1100 BCE, which means a little over 3,000 years ago. Very ancient. But compared to the piece that we have just talked about, this actually is 300 years later. This is time the Chinese bronze making attained one of its highest peaks. So it's very, very important. Because of the rarity, because of such a charm imparted by this little beast, that it has become our museum's mascot. And we encourage our visitors and the online visitors as well to come to vote for a nickname. By popular vote, now it is called the Reina. Reina in Spanish means queen, a name that is truly charming and regal. So by people's will, we now know this rhino is female. Now I'd like to introduce you to this magnificent bronze vessel. And I'd like to talk about it from several different perspectives. The first is the shape. And one word are often the case to describe this kind of vessel is architectonic or architecture. Because to me, this vessel really looks like a building. We know building often the case is very stable, very well balanced. And in this case too, it has 3 spreading legs, spreading outwards, which make the shape very stable. And we know tripod is the most stable form. Then it has curved surface, middle section of the vessel, which is very beautiful and elegant. And it rises above to the mouth rim. And on top of the mouth rim are 2 bold posts, look like architecture elements. So if we look at the profile from the top to the middle section, to the legs, or the other way around, the whole piece to me looks architectonic. Different components are well articulated. The second, let's look at the surface decoration. That this vessel is covered with surface decorations, particularly in the middle section, which is the primary section of the vessel. It has 3 tiers or 3 registers of decoration. The most prominent one is at the bottom of the middle section. You're looking at a pair of eyes looking at us. And the human psychology is such, whenever we see a pair of eyes, we will look back. So it attracts our attention. And you see the middle ridge, the razor ridge, in between the eyes, we can interpret as nose. And then we start to see it has jaws, 2 double jaws that beneath the eyes, and what above the eyes is the horns. So this is an animal, but we don't know what kind of animal it represents because it's kind of abstract, kind of stylized. But we know this creature must be very important to the people of the time. So what time was this vessel was made? It was made around 1200 BCE. So it's around the same time as our favorite bronze rhino. But you can tell those 2 pieces are completely different. This is a vessel, the other is in the shape of an animal. And this has a beautiful, elaborate surface design. The other does not have it in order to retain its naturalistic appeal. And however, they do share one thing in common. They're both wine containers. Again, wine was a very important element in the royal banquet or sacrifices for ancestors. Indeed, originally, this piece may very likely come from a tomb of a king of the dynasty of that time, the Song dynasty. So you can imagine the king of that dynasty using this vessel as one of an assembly in presiding over the royal sacrifices for his ancestors. It is magnificent, it is bold, but also it is very beautiful at the same time. And it serves a very practical function. That is, contain the wine in service for royal sacrifices. I'd like to discuss now this small vessel, but actually a vessel has larger than life significance. First of all, let me talk about the shape. It is a rectangular shaped vessel, has 4 legs, or tetrapod, and belonging to the type called the ding, D-I-N-G. Among all the Chinese bronze vessel types, this is probably the most important kind. It's a food container, usually would contain meat in sacrifices, but it has taken on its political and a social meaning, so that the word ding has become a symbol of establishment of rulership. So if you set down the ding in a certain area, which means you have set up your realm of authority. So it has a tremendous symbolic meanings. This vessel also has extraordinary surface decorations and in the shape of birds with beautiful wings and with hooked beaks. And the artist is so ingenious that actually in the corner, each of the 4 corners, you see the wings are spread. One on this side, the other on the other side, and then of course they share the beak in the corner. The 4 corners of the vessels are very prominently articulated. And the legs are also in the shape of the birds, prominent birds. So this vessel, even though the size is small, the surface decorations made it extremely prominent. But beyond that, the vessel also contains extraordinarily important content. It's that content that makes this vessel larger than life. This vessel was made around 1000 years BCE. So about 200 years later than the tripod that we have just discussed. And that is the time of the change of dynasty from the Song dynasty to the Zhou dynasty. Zhou was belonging to an ethnic group that conquered the kingdom of Song, established a new ruling dynasty called the Zhou. But the Song remnants were still very powerful, and they actually, colluding with some of the branches of the Zhou house, they rebelled soon after the conquest. So one lord of the Zhou royal house had to lead another expeditionary force to reconquer the Song. And that is the single most important historical incident in the entire Zhou dynasty that really settled down the power. And our bronze carries the inscription about this most signature event in the Zhou history. The inscription recorded a royal officer in the service of that Zhou lord who led the expedition to reconquer the land. And because of his extraordinary services, he was rewarded. And on that occasion, he commissioned this piece to document it, and of course, to keep his honor for his family in perpetuity. Because this kind of vessels, often the case, were used in temples for containing food in sacrifice to ancestors. That is why this piece is extraordinary. Again, one of a kind in the world, and we are very, very fortunate to be the custodian of this object, along with many other wonderful pieces that I hope you will enjoy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jay, for that wonderful tour through our bronze collection. And so in the video, you stated that your favorite piece of art that we have in the museum would be the bronze vessel in the shape of a rhinoceros. And so what I am asking the viewers, which was your favorite vessel on this tour? Was it the first wine vessel, the vessel in the shape of a rhinoceros, the architectonic vessel, or the final vessel, the food vessel? Feel free to put in your votes right now. I'll keep this open for like another 5-10 seconds. Oh, this is interesting.
Yes, I'm curious to see the result.
All right, just gonna give it a couple more seconds to get your last second then. All right. So it looks like Raina is the majority as well. She's my favorite also. So
yeah, I'm not surprised. Usually I would say that I don't want to take on a parental stance, but allow me to say that they're like my kids in the sense of the bronze is the subject for my study, when I went to graduate school and working in various museums. That's among all the subjects I study, bronze is the core. And I like all of them. But because Rhino is indeed so extraordinary, so that it just has been the mascot for our museum for long history, ever since the opening of the museum more than 50 years ago.
all right, and I'm going to open up the questions now. So we've actually gotten a really great collection of questions, and a few of them are similar in topics, and so I'm going to combine a few as we go. The first one, where did bronze smelting start? Where was it invented? And another question was, were the Chinese the first to use bronze?
Let me answer the second part question first. No, Chinese was not the first. The earliest piece of Chinese bronze, if I remember correctly, is a bronze knife, small knife, and found in northwestern part of China, and dating from around the beginning of the 3rd millennium BCE, so about nearly 5,000 years ago from now. So it's very, very early. And it's not surprisingly, earliest pieces found is always in the small tools. But the world's earliest bronze specimen, I think, was found even 2 more thousand years earlier. And I think that surprisingly, the first piece, if I remember correctly, is in today's Serbia, found, dating from around let me search my memory, about 4,500 years BCE. But the earliest bronze civilization, if you will, we know is in Mesopotamia. And so that is, middle of the 4th millennium BCE, so about the 5,500 years ago or more. And the technology typically was hammer. So the cold working, because the metal has always been very rare in the Mesopotamian area. So the technology used hammering was the first and the preferred technology using early bronze civilizations in the Mesopotamian region.
All right, and the next question. Are the vessels in a dust-free environment, or do you clean them every so often? They look very fragile.
Oh yeah, well, our museum, like many other museums, but certainly I'm very proud of our conservation and the caretaking of the collection. We're in climate controlled galleries, and all the glasses are very well sealed. So I think I will not say 100%, like the airtight, but basically yes, by and large it's dust free, and our conservators and other staff take great care of the collection. And it's important for the bronzes to be in a very stable humidity and climate environment, because the one agent, the oxygen, which is both life-sustaining, but also is making us aging too, right? They oxidize. So if in a unstable conditions, the bronze will continue to corrode, which is a process of reverting back to the mineral from which the bronze was smelted and developed. So we take great care, and our condition is very stable.
And was the wine vessel cast or assembled or beaten metal? It does not appear to be cast.
Oh, this is an excellent question. I thank for the sharp observation of our friend here to make this question. It was cast, but yes, it does give you a sense of a beating bronze. It is very light, the thing. It's a very lightweight. compared to the tripod, that archetypal piece, that is a very heavy piece by comparison. Compared to this early piece, is very light. So this does suggests, we don't have absolute evidence that before the casting started in China around 1500 BCE, there likely was a period the bronze was also beaten, cold working, hammering. And actually not only, you can suggest it by the look of this piece, some of the pieces would have a certain stylistic feature like a rivet that in the Mesopotamian region will be using to join these discrete pieces together. So using rivet, but in China, sometimes they casting the shape of a rivet looking the addition. And also the folded rim in all the vessel has a mouth rim, right? Because in the Near Eastern, the vessel very thin because metal was precious and hammered very thin. In order to make it looking very impressive and heavy, they often case folded the rim inward. On the rim side, it has a folded side, looks thicker than the rest of the body. But in early Chinese bronzes, somehow this feature was captured as well. So there may be a possibility of East or West connections, and there's always been a discussion where Chinese bronze age started, and if there's external influence, the possibility certainly existed. At the same time, Chinese use a very unique bronze casting method that nobody else was using, called piece mold casting, and it's leaving behind certain specific traces upon which we can determine the piece, whether the piece was cast. So through these technological study, that I can tell for sure the piece was cast, and cast by a unique method nobody else in the world was using at the time. So China invented that particular technology.
Thank you. And then a lot of people are curious about the wine. What kind of wine was in these vessels? Was it grain wine or grape wine?
Another great question. Wine is a euphemism. Just like I talk, and this is the year of the metal ox. But let's say this is the year of a golden ox, because the word Qing both meaning metal and also meaning gold. So, broad sense meaning metal, in the narrow sense, could mean gold, particularly in modern usage. So the wine is a very broad term in this case. Wine sounds better than beer, right? Actually at that time it was a fermented beer-like beverage. So from grain, not from grape, from millets, and there's a very dominant type of grain that in China, millets, vis-a-vis the wheat in other parts of the world. And so it is basically a beer, and a cloudy beer.
All right. And do rhinos have a special significance in China today? Does the use of an animal shape in a vessel have special meaning?
Because the rhino had extinct. The last record of a spotting of wild rhino in the natural environment in southwest China took place sometime in the Ming Dynasty, so around 16th century AD. So it's about 400 years ago. Ever since then, there was never a spotting of a rhino, Sumatran rhino, the two-horned type in China's natural environment. So it is, like similar things happen in the rest of the world. It's very saddening. So of course, there's a tremendous effort for conservation in the world. Rhino, there's altogether 5 specific types. And the rhino, because it's the creature that with very prominent horns. And over the time, with the passage of time, people develop the particular affinity or to the rhino horns, and also assign the magic meanings, particularly nutritious meaning, life renewal meaning of the rhino. They think rhino horns contain the medicinal benefits, and also in spirit, it also carries good auspicious meaning. So quite a lot of drinking cups were made of rhino horns. Actually, in our museums in the later Chinese decorative art, gallery, you see a few examples of rhino horn. Of course, we don't necessarily judge the ancients using today's standard, but we're using those examples also not only tell the important part of the history, but also using the example to tell how important today's natural environment conservation is. We must do our very best to preserve and conserve the natural habitat for the animals that actually cohabitating with humans, this globe. We're just one of many species, so we need to be really respectful of all the creatures.
I completely agree with that, Jay. And Raina, she is a popular figure tonight. A lot of people have questions about the vessel. It doesn't have a pouring spout, and as a wine vessel, how is it used? And another question has to do with there's no handle on the Rhino. How do you pour the wine?
That's an excellent question, but let me add a bit more to the previous questions. So why the Rhino was so important in the Song Dynasty when this vessel was made? And there was, in earliest Chinese surviving example of Chinese writing was on so-called oracle bones. Because the bones are harder than other perishable materials to perish, so they survived turtle shells and ox shoulder blades, and so there's writing on them and recording the royal hunts of rhino. And so the hunting rhino was a very important the sports, and also the sports by which to show the valor and the power, particularly royal power. Similar like in the Mesopotamia region, hunting lions, right? The king with hunting lions in the Egypt or in the Mesopotamian the regions. In China, to be hunting tigers and rhinos. So it's a tremendously important creature at that time for the psyche and of the people. And also the rhino skin, often the case we use for as the part of the armory as well. So there was that part going on at that time as well. So back to the usability of the rhino. No, you don't pour it. You ladle it. So this vessel will stay stationary. You open the lid, you put in a ladle, and you ladle out, and they scoop out the wine of the beer and then pour into the drinking cups, and then you drink from it. Just imagine it's like a punch bowl, right? You ladle it.
And then earlier you talked about how one of the pieces was used in sacrifices, and that definitely caught the attention of some of our viewers. What type of wine did they make for the sacrifices? We went over that a little bit earlier, but just in general, what do you mean by sacrifices? What does that mean?
The sacrifices in a very broad range. I think sacrificial is a human activity that really almost universal. And have a wide range, sometimes could be very symbolic, like today's contemporary, we still sacrifice, right? We still pay respects to our deceased ancestors. Even for today, when we go to our cemetery, we will pour some liqueur or put a flower. In the broader meaning, that's sacrifice, because you think you can still communicate with the spirit of the deceased. And the other extreme, the human sacrifices, like in Mayan, right? There's a tremendous number of people would be slaughtered as a part of an offering to deceased ancestors or other higher powers. In China too, human sacrifices during that time, the Song Dynasty existed. But in addition to the human sacrifices, it's the sacrifices of food and wine, because the idea about the ancestors is that they still survive in similar ways like human beings, even though they in this non-human bodily form. So they still need to be nourished. They still need to be provided with all the gourmets and great beverages. That's why the food and the wine, and there are different kinds of wines. Even though we don't know, there are very few surviving examples containing liquid stew within them. Actually, there are few, but very, very few. So we cannot tell. And of course, after 1,000 years, the ingredients have all changed. But from the writing, we can know that there's a range of wines, and some special occasion will require some special wine. Of course, I mean, there are different categories, just like today's grape wine, we're drinking different vintages from different vineyards. So you can imagine there are different wine, beer make shops, and at that time, and also, and there's a recording about filtering beer, filtering wine at that time. So very important. It requires particular type of grass, because as I said, the beer is muddy, right? If you have a high grade, you need to purify to make it for more pure. So indeed, there's a range. But unfortunately, we would have a chance to taste them, but no, we won't be able to. But lately, because of the ancient specimen was discovered, there was effort to recreate a beer based on the ancient specimen. So how close that the recreation is, I have no comment, because I have not drank it, and I don't know what the original one would taste like.
And then a lot of people have questions about the inscriptions that are on the artwork. And so have all of the inscriptions in our collection been translated? And how is the inscription carved onto the bronze vessels that we see today?
First of all, it was not carved. It was cast together with the vessel. So that is very important. So if the vessel is authentic, and you can be sure the bronze inscription was cast, then they date from the same period, right? Otherwise, you can be sure the inscription is cast, but somehow either you can determine the inscription of the vessel is wrong, then the whole piece is wrong, right? So I think there were carved bronze inscriptions come later. And because, using bronze to carve bronze would be very difficult, or using the jade stone material to carve metal would be also difficult. Once you invented, the other metal, particularly the iron, which is sharper than the bronze, it would be a bit easier. But even though it was difficult, there was a small number of early bronze inscription that was indeed carved. The earliest piece maybe dates around, let's say, about 9th century BC, about 100 years later, then the tetrapod, our famous tetrapod, was made. But all the inscriptions on our pieces were cast. And the reason we can understand them is thanks to the great stability of the Chinese writing system. Even though the shapes of certain words changes, but those changes were gradual and consistent. So that's why we can still read ancient Chinese writing, dating as early as the bronze inscriptions and also oracle bones. That does not mean we be able to read every word. Sometimes, our Rhino has the inscription 27 words, and our tetrapod has about 35 characters, out of which there's one or two we still cannot read, but most of them we can read them, because the same characters, even though has transformed the shapes, but still be used. And you can trace those transformation backwards throughout this long period of 3,500 years. And this is the resilience of Chinese civilizations. Chinese is, I think, is the only civilization that still continuously using its writing system, unbroken, from the day it was invented.
All right, and then we have a very inquisitive group today. We have lots and lots of questions still, right, but we are a little over time. However, I want to get as many questions as we can into this, and then we can always send out more information later. So let's keep going for like 5 or 6 more minutes and see where we can end off. Okay, great. And thank you everybody for all of your participation today. I really appreciate all of your questions. So let's see. Has research revealed or given us any indication concerning the original colors of the bronzes? Is it assumed that all of these bronzes were finished with the same patina, or was color less of a concern?
Yeah, then when we think of bronze today, we think of green color, right? But actually green color is the patina. Patina is the surface of the corrosion. It's oxidized, it's gradually reverting back to the mineral. The bronze is fundamentally an alloy of copper and tin. But in China, Chinese invented a special alloy by adding lead. So in Chinese bronze, it's a copper, tin, and the lead. But even though it's a 3-part combination versus the 2-part combination of the alloy, the bronze is always looking golden when it was newly made. And depends on the proportion between tin and the copper. And sometimes it's like a golden looking yellowish, sometimes a little bit, lighter. And that is why the Chinese kept the qing meaning metal, but also in today's use, it actually means gold because of the color, right? So, but also when we think of a bronze, green actually is the today's effect. When it's newly made, it was golden.
And then a few of our viewers are curious about the provenance of some of our pieces. Could you speak to any of the pieces that we went over earlier today, or just to our collection in general?
Yeah, I think, there are 2 pieces that of the 4, actually we know fairly well where they originally were buried. And our rhino was from a hoard that discovered in the 19th centuries in Shandong province, a coastal province, and I think to the east and south of Beijing. And at which the first collector for this piece after it was accidentally discovered was the descendants of the Confucius. The Confucius family lived in Shandong province. So for several generations, it stayed with the Confucius project, the family. Then it somehow, I don't know the reason for sure, somehow it went back to the market. And through several changing hands, eventually, I think the late 1940s, left China and brought to America by a Shanghai-based Chinese antique dealers who set up his shop on Madison Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. And then Avery Brundage, the founder of this museum, and who donated his collection in the late 1950s and early 60s to the city and county of San Francisco. Brundage bought this piece in 1952 that it was not in the record, but through my research, I published a paper about when and from whom, and even at what price he bought the piece. So that is the rhino. The other one, the tripod, clearly from a very important tomb, most likely a royal tomb, in the last capital of the Song Dynasty in Henan province, also, in the north part, not so far away from Beijing. And then, it was most likely excavated that part, and then it went into the antique market. In the northern part of China, where the old seats of civilizations or important dynasties are, often the case when farmer would till the land, they would find metals or other treasures, and they would sell them and then gradually circulating them. The Brundage, I don't think he has ever actually traveled inside China. I think he was maybe in Shanghai once, but it was prevented from going further because the war was going on. So he mostly bought his pieces in New York or in London or Paris, I think in the particularly in the late 1940s or 1950s. Actually, the third piece, the tetrapod, the third piece, tetrapod, also know more about its origins from Shanxi province, where Xi'an is, where terracotta warriors are in that region, further to the west. And there's a fairly clear record that particular funding from which this piece came from was looted by a warlord of the time. And then warlord sold it through, again into the market, and then eventually it was again acquired by Avery Brundage and entered the museum in the 1960s.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we have today. And for the answers that we didn't, or the questions that we didn't get to, we'll take a look at them and combine similar questions, and we'll get you more information. We'll be sure to send out a follow-up email to everybody because I want to make sure that you all get your answers. You all have been a wonderful crowd tonight. And so I want to thank you for being so engaged through everything. I would like to thank Jay for being such a wonderful host today. And I just want to thank everybody that made this event a reality. I want to thank Sarah and John on the back end who have been helping oversee everything today. I would like to thank Mira and Zach for all of your hard work that went into this wonderful project. And I invite everybody back. We're going to have this series once every other week. The last one will be on July 3rd. So you have lots and lots of time to learn about different areas of Asian art and different mediums of Asian art. And so I just want to thank everybody for coming today, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'd like to add my thanks to my team and particularly to all the audiences. Thank you for spending a New Year's weekend with us.
Happy New Year, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.